Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes? Matt here from YoVideogames, and I'm back again with another video. This time I kind of want to talk about something that's been gnawing at the back of my mind, and that is the missing in action Nintendo developers. Now, if you're a fan of Nintendo, you've had a lot of reason to be bragging. I mean, you don't even need to stealth brag about the success that Nintendo has had over the last 6 years. Switch has been a bona fide hit everywhere around the world, and it has a bunch of games that have sold millions of copies, some of in the tens of millions. So yeah, Nintendo's doing just fine. This ain't a Nintendo is doomed video. You can go somewhere else for that because this ain't it, Chief. But what I do want to talk about today, though, is that there is a number of Nintendo developers who have kind of been quiet. Really quiet. In fact, some are so quiet they haven't even really shown up on the Switch at all. Now, here's the problem a lot of just casual Nintendoites or just video game fans in general, they kind of lose track of, and that is they kind of think of Nintendo as this big amorphous blob. And it's just like everything that comes out of Nintendo that has a Mario or a Zelda or whatever on it, Nintendo made it. And it's like, well, that's not actually true. Nintendo's a company that has a bunch of different divisions, and even within those divisions, there are different developers, there's different studios, different teams. Today, they're currently called Nintendo EPD, and that stands for Entertainment Product Development. There used to be another name for them, but that got renamed, reshuffled. So nowadays, basically, you can look at it like this. Like, let me give you a big example. EPD 3 makes Zelda. That's the Zelda team. Those are the Zelda people. So the Nintendo EPD3 is the developer of Zelda games. They do not make Splatoon and Animal Crossing, right? They make Zelda. So with that out of the way, let's clarify that. Let's talk about the developers that have been the workhorses and those who are just missing in action. We're really going to focus on the missing in action ones here today. So I want to work backwards, though. I don't want this to just be like strictly about the internal workings of Nintendo because, one, that's really hard to gauge and understand because they're so damn secretive. But anyways, let's work backwards here and let's go off of, external developers, third parties, people who are not owned by Nintendo, not really tied to Nintendo, but have definitely been workhorses for them. And the big obvious one is Koei Tecmo and Namco. They've been workhorses for Nintendo on the Switch, done a ton of work. Koei Tecmo did all of the Three Hopes. They did all the Warriors games for Zelda, 2 Zeldas, 2, at least 1 Fire Emblem. They've done a lot of work with Nintendo. And then you got the Namco side, which is, obviously they pretty much made Smash Brothers. They did new Pokemon Snap Pokken Tournament. And they actually ended up, as we found out, they did help on Mario Kart Tour. They've helped out on Mario Kart 8. Namco's been in bed with a lot of Nintendo stuff. So, and then obviously you got Platinum Games. They did Bayonetta 1 and 2 ports. They did Astral Chain. They did Bayonetta 3. They did Bayonetta Origins. They had a wonderful 101 port. Like, Platinum's done serious work with Nintendo on the Switch. So these are all good, strong partners. As far as like sort of third-party partners that usually kind of work with Nintendo, but like strangely silent. I think the one that stands out to me the most really is Sega. Like, yeah, they put the Sonic games on there, and that's kind of it. Like, they don't put the Yakuza games on there. We just kind of started getting the Persona 3, 4, 5. It was interesting because, as the Atlas side of Sega did make Shin Megami Tensei 5 as a Switch exclusive, and that's pretty cool. But it's also weird that the success of the Switch being so dominant in Japan especially, it's kind of interesting how Sega, for the most part, Sega and Atlas are like, we'll support it, but kind of, like, we're not going to put everything on it. We'll put like spin-offs of Persona. Eventually, they really late, they put the Persona 3, 4, 5, like I said. Shin Megami Tensei 5 is like the one big exclusive from them, and we really didn't, we got at least one Mario and Sonic at the Olympics, but like, it was weird how that didn't really seem to like lead to anything else, but that's just weird. That being said, the one sort of partner with Nintendo that's not really owned by Nintendo or attached to Nintendo is Mercury Steam, and they've done obviously Metroid Dread, and they did Metroid Samus Returns, and they're more than likely doing another Metroid game for them. They are the main developers on the 2D style Metroids. So not really a lot to say there, but here's where, but let's talk about who is a third-party studio, not owned by Nintendo, not kind of like attached at the hip, and you'll see what I'm saying later, and that is Good Feel. Goodfeel made Kirby's Epic Yarn. They made Wario Land games. They made Yoshi's Woolly Butthole. They made Yoshi's Crafted Cunnilingus. I mean, Yoshi's Crafted World. And they pretty much fell off the face of the earth 4 years ago, over 4 years ago. So what's interesting is Yoshi's Crafted World was announced before the Switch was even out. And it took a while to get out. It took all the way till March 2019. Although that could have just literally been for timing purposes, Nintendo to spread out its releases. It might have been done even way earlier than that. But after March 2019, Yoshi's Crafted World, Goodfeel's kind of vanished. And it's kind of really hard to know where they are or what's going on with them. Because, yeah, like, it seems like Nintendo maybe feels like they have enough 2D goodness going on with Mario Deluxe, Mario, Wonder, stuff like that. I don't know. It's a little weird. Goodfeel is probably not feeling too good right now. Unfortunately, I really do see the shades of Alpha Dream here, which was the developer of the Mario and Luigi series, and they went bankrupt, and Nintendo basically didn't give a shit. So it's weird that Nintendo never bought them outright to just, hey, make Yoshi games or make Kirby games or like spin-off Kirbys or spin-off Warios. But no, they've kind of just fallen off the face of the planet, which is really unfortunate because I believe Wario Land Shake It or Shake Dimension. It seemed like I remember that being a pretty cool game on the Wii, but alas, like they have been missing in action for years. I don't know what's keeping them afloat. Maybe they're doing mobile stuff, but it's not looking great for Goodfeel if you like their output. Let's talk about historical partners. Let's talk people who are attached at the hip. Now, here's a crazy thing. Nintendo doesn't own these companies outright, but they do own either them partially or basically like have them by the balls. This is Grezzo, Intelligent System, Creatures, Game Freak, HAL Laboratories, and sort of Camelot. Camelot's not necessarily owned by Nintendo, but all that being said, Grezzo, they've basically kind of been doing what they've been doing. Like, they did Link's Awakening remake, they did Miitopia. I can't really say Grezzo's like just out of the picture or whatever. They've been a little quiet since the Miitopia remake, but I wouldn't really, to them, I wouldn't consider them missing in action or anything like that. Intelligent Systems is the weird one to me because they're both involved, and strangely, if you look at the past history of Intelligent Systems and what they've done for Nintendo, they used to kind of be Nintendo's current day Monolith Soft, where they were workhorses and they would put out like constant big hits. But not only that, Intelligent Systems would actually create and develop capture software for portable systems like the Game Boy Advance and the Nintendo DS, and they would actually be involved in the hardware side of things, internally hardware or for press or whatever. And Intelligent has been around. It's just crazy to think that Nintendo doesn't actually own Intelligent Systems, sort of, but yeah, they're pretty much attached to the hip. And here's where it gets weird. Like, they didn't do Three Hopes, or I'm sorry, they didn't do Three Houses. That's the crazy thing, because like Koei Tecmo did Three Houses, Three Hopes, Warriors, whatever. They had 4 people from Intelligent Systems sort of overseeing Three Houses. They did Fire Emblem Engage, which apparently got, was pushed back a lot. They also did Paper Mario Origami King, and they're about to release their second WarioWare title. So I can't sit there and say like, oh, where's Intelligent Systems been? They've been there, but it's almost strange how much Intelligent System has had to rely on Koei Tecmo for their flagship series for Fire Emblem for the duration of the Switch's life. And Origami King is cool, I guess. I mean, we can kind of give them a little bit of a pass because if you remember, like, Paper Mario Color Splash was kind of like the last major first-party title released for the Wii U, not counting Breath of the Wild. So, that probably took up some of their time. They went from that to Origami King way later, and what have you. But they used to be, I'm just saying, I guess the point here I'm making is Intelligent System used to be a lot more prolific, and they've kind of slowed, but not, they certainly haven't disappeared on anything. Creatures is interesting because they still do work with Game Freak for art assets, character modeling assets for a lot of their Pokemon projects. But as far as they go, they have not actually done much at all. Like, in fact, this is going to be their first internally developed game on the Switch this year, which is Detective Pikachu Returns. And I don't mean to be hyperbolic. And here's the thing: this is not a hyperbole. This is not. Detective Pikachu Returns looks no better than a GameCube game released 20 years ago, graphically speaking. Like, it is at the level of a GameCube game, and not even necessarily a high-end pushing the boundaries, like a mid-lifespan GameCube game. Like, it is a horrifically dated-looking video game, visually, aesthetically, when you look at Detective Pikachu Returns. It is shocking. And it's also shocking to know that last year, that the Pokemon Company itself was the 5th, highest generating revenue for any merchandising company in the world. They're only behind Warner Brothers and Disney and a couple others. And basically what I'm saying, they made about $12 billion in merchandise last year, and yet somehow none of this money seems to go whatsoever towards the development of their actual video game projects. It's fucking insanity to me. I'm lumping Creatures a little bit, into the Game Freak, and Game Freak is definitely the more responsible party for this than others. But Creatures is weird because they used to have the Pokemon Ranger series at least, and now it was just like it took them way too long to go from the first Detective Pikachu to Detective Pikachu Returns. But I guess we can't say they're missing because, hey, here it is. It looks like a game that was probably made 5 years ago on the 3DS, and they're only just releasing it now on the Switch. But whatever. But yeah, like and as far as the other like traditional second party, if you want to call them that, not really such a thing, but yeah, Camelot, HAL, they're doing their thing. HAL's pumping. HAL loves Kirby and they're pumping it out, and they're doing great. Nothing to talk about there. Game Freak's a whole nother ball of wax. That's a whole nother video for a whole nother rant. But holy shit, they are cheap motherfuckers. They are just grifting you at this point. But anyways, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this video. Why am I here? And that is to talk about where are some of the missing Nintendo developers internally. Now, to break this down, there's about 4 branches of Nintendo EPD that deal externally. And there was EPD 1, there's EPD 2, and EPD 6. EPD 6 was generally the company that would deal with all the Western developers, the Metroid Federation, Forest Mario, Donkey Kong. So you're talking about like NST and Next Level Games and stuff like that. They did some work with Japanese studios like Skip when they were still around, but like, yeah. So EPD 6 was kind of like the Western liaison studio. There's not really much to say there because Nintendo bought Next Level Games, so there's not really much to oversee there. EPD 1 and 2 actually got merged because there wasn't anything for EPD 2 to do, because they generally handled the Mario and Luigi series. They handled like Hey Pikmin and stuff like that, and pretty much they're done. So they got merged into dealing with EPD 1 stuff, which are just kind of like overseers, people who basically, when Nintendo farms out a franchise or farms out something like say Advance Wars Reboot Camp to Way Forward, EPD 1 will be the team overseeing it from Nintendo. So interestingly enough, there in 2020, EPD 1 and 2 got merged. Also interestingly is Platinum kind of got merged in with that too. So just a little tidbit there. So I don't know what EPD 1 or 2 is called. Is it all just EPD 1? Is it all just EPD? Probably just all just EPD 1. But yeah, let's we don't have to go any more into that. There's also I believe it's EPD 11, which deals strictly with mobile gaming. Obviously they're doing fine. So let's talk about the internal teams. There's EPD 3. That's Zelda. Now, I was a little hard on them before Tears of the Kingdom came out, and I'm still not all is forgiven for sure on them, but I can say that I can feel like I can give a little bit of a leeway considering the general. Okay, that was a really big game. I don't think the underground is huge, but it's also very bleak and samey looking. The Sky Islands all kind of look the same too, but whatever. I can give a little bit of leeway if we take Aonuma at face value, which I don't. But when he says they added a year of polish to the game, like it was done a year before, but they just wanted to spend a year polishing it. I kind of can believe that just because of how stable the game runs on the potato that it's running on, which is the Switch. So while I don't normally trust anything that comes out of that man's mouth at face value, I can also kind of sit there and say, like, well, the proof is kind of in the pudding with Tears of the Kingdom, and it is a game that is, doing a lot of programming tricks and magic, but it's not destroying the system it's running it onto. So that's fine. Okay, I can give a little leeway there. It is still weird that it took 6 fucking years to make a sequel to Breath of the Wild running on the same system and the same engine, but whatever. I give a little bit of a leeway. They definitely were trying to do things that would normally cause many glitches and headaches. EPD6 is one of the workhorse star teams. Same with EPD5. So 4 and 5. So just to break it down, EPD4, they do Ring Fit Adventure. They did Nintendo Switch Sports. They did 1-2 Switch games. Nintendo Labo, Game Builder Garage. They're prolific. They don't do huge games, and they don't do games that you probably give a shit about. But they do make games. They make them, and they pump them out, and they get them out there. EPD5 is Splatoon and Animal Crossing. They make Splatoon 2, and then they made Animal Crossing, and then they made Splatoon 3. And they made all the DLC for 2 and 3 and Animal Crossing, so their workhorses ain't got nothing to say there. Now let's talk about the big missing in action team, and that's EPD7. These are probably the most mysterious EPD. They vanished after Rhythm Heaven Megamix in 2015 for the 3DS. And that was a Megamix, a combination of Rhythm Heaven games. Their last full, unassisted by another developer game was Game & Wario in 2013 for the Wii U. Now, because this is the original developer within Nintendo that used to make Metroid, they do oversee Mercury Steam on Metroid 2, Samus Returns, and Metroid Dread. And the last thing they kind of had anything to do besides that was overseeing Famicom Detective Club. If you remember that, there were visual novels, and that was made by Mages, a completely different studio in Japan that specializes in visual novel games. They made Famicom Detective Club remakes, and EPD7 sort of oversaw it in the same way they oversaw Metroid Dread. But they have not themselves made a title on their own since 2013 for Game & Wario for the Wii U. That was 10 fucking years ago. This team has fallen into a literal black hole. They used to make the WarioWare games. They used to make the Metroid games. They used to make Rhythm Heaven. They used to make Tamagotchi Life. They made, Miitomo originally, and I believe the original Miitopia, but they are gone. They have fallen into a fucking black hole. I don't actually have any answer what's going on here, because Sakamoto, the director of all the old Metroid games, I think he heads the department. What he's up to, I don't fucking know. It's weird to me. It's also kind of weird that they never did do a Tamagotchi Life for the Switch, considering it was a huge breakout hit in Japan when the first one came out, and it did okay numbers in North America as well. Maybe they didn't want to. My guess is that maybe they never followed up on Tamagotchi Life because, one, the Miis themselves were sort of phased out on the Switch a bit, and secondly, there was a lot of controversy for how they handled the gay LBGT aspects of Tamagotchi Life. If anyone wants to remember that, that old glitch and how they had to patch it out, quote unquote. Yeah, that was a real bad look, and it would only look worse in today's era. And I know how controversy averse Nintendo is, so Tamagotchi Life might just be burying it because they don't want anyone to remember how they responded to that initially, which I certainly do. And they probably just don't want to deal with that ever again, I guess. But it's still weird. I also think, just more practically, there's no Mii system. Like, it's not like the Wii, it's not like the 3DS, where there's like programs that use the Miis, commonly or all the time. Like, even Nintendo Switch Sports used a different style of Miis for it. They didn't just use the old default one. So I don't know. EPD7 is probably the strangest game developer on this list because they just are gone. EPD8 is Nintendo Tokyo, and this was the one that hurts me the most because, where the fuck are they? The only thing I can honestly say is maybe they're doing a new, a game for the next system launch. For those, I guess I should clarify. Nintendo Tokyo, EPD8, they make 3D Mario games. Mario 3D World, Mario Odyssey, Mario Galaxy. They were a lot more prolific on the Wii U than they were on the Switch. It's weird because not only did they make 3D World, they made the Flipnote Studio games, they made the NES Remix games. They have done almost fuck all since Mario Odyssey launched 6 fucking years ago. Okay, there was a port of 3D World, which here's the crazy thing. NST did the 3D World port, and I'm going to guess that the EPD8 was the one who did all of Bowser's Fury. So in the 6 years since Mario Odyssey, they've basically done Bowser's Fury. Neat. But where the fuck are they? The only sort of hope or caveat here is that, like, well, they're probably being prepped to work on whatever next fall's big giant game is, which I assume will be on a new system, because my assumption right now as of the making of this video is that the fall of next year in 2024, there'll be a launch of a new Nintendo system, and a big 3D Mario game is probably going to launch with it, and that will be made by EPD8, and it's probably what they've been up to, but that is a fucking long time to basically have done one side project in between. Like, it's strange to me, because not only is EPD8 like a good developer, but they're also one of the better, usually one of the developers that have better grasp on the hardware that Nintendo has. Like, they make the potatoes sing usually. So it's kind of sad that, like, one of the more talented studios within Nintendo just didn't do anything else on the Switch really after Odyssey. I mean, I know it sounds like I'm really downplaying Bowser's Fury, and Bowser's Fury is fucking great, don't get me wrong, but it's like a 4-hour or 3-hour game. It's a cool bite-sized thing, but it is in no way, shape, or form, something that makes up for like 6 years of non-development, of nothing, of just zero. So moving on, it's EPD9. Now here's the one where people will say, well, they've been prolific, they've been doing stuff. And to that I say, kind of. EPD9 kind of done fuck all since ARMS and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe 6 years ago. They work with EPD11, the mobile developer, and DNA on Mario Kart Tour, who we found out through a Namco press release that Namco did work on Mario Kart Tour, the mobile Mario Kart game, but they specifically pointed out the core developer was DNA on Mario Kart Tour. Weird. And then Velon, who is not owned by Nintendo, complete third party, they did Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, the game where you have cameras on toy Mario Kart and you drive around on remote control cars and you make little AR courses. They oversaw that, but Velon, or Velon, however you pronounce them, they are not a Nintendo developer, but they were the main developers on Mario Kart Live Home Circuit. So really, what has EPD9 done? Nothing really, like, internally developed. Like, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was, an updated version of 8. And that came out, like a month after the system did. And then ARMS came out in June 2017, over 6 years ago. And they have not released their own game fucking since. So it's been over 6 years. There is the Mario Kart Booster Course Pass, which, yay, 5 years later, Mario Kart gets DLC that they ripped mostly from the mobile game. Yay. But for a company that has a game that has sold over 50 million fucking copies with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, just Deluxe, it's strange how they've basically done nothing. And then half a decade later, they decided to throw some DLC in from the mobile version of the game they had been overseeing. That was core developer with someone else as well. I don't know what the fuck's going on there. I can't imagine they're just people sitting there, they go to work and they just smoke a cigar and sit on fat stacks of cash and count the money, because that's just not how it works. But I don't know what the fuck they're doing. It's bizarre. Part of me kind of wonders and fears if maybe the people who were working in, say, EPD 7 and 9, maybe they just got shifted to 4 and 5. Maybe they just got put on Splatoon and Animal Crossing and Ring Fit and other games because they didn't have any use for them where they were at the time. Like, maybe those internal studios don't even exist anymore. That's the scariest thought. EPD 10 has been working. They did the new Super Mario Brothers games. They did Super Mario Maker 2. They did Pikmin 4. They're doing Super Mario Wonder right now. Can't really say anything bad about them. They're doing work. They're another one of those sort of workhorse developers for Nintendo right now. EPD 4, 5, and 10 get the most done, and then Zelda, every 6 years they get a game going. And then there's the non-EPD teams. we don't need to talk about Monolith. They're the most important developer Nintendo has, bar none, by a country fucking mile. And there's ND Cube, who did Mario Party and Clubhouse, and they've been cracking them out. And Next Level Games has actually been, however you feel about them, they've been doing work with, Mario Strikers, Luigi's Mansion. I'm sure they've got another game going right now. The big one is Retro Studios, which is like, we know what they're doing, but let's just get it out of the way right now. It's taken way, 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 way too fucking long to get an update on Metroid Prime 4. Because we heard about it over 4 years ago that they were going to take over the reins for Metroid Prime 4. And it really feels like by now we should have seen or heard something of the game. And then, as a whole, Retro hasn't done anything for pretty much a decade since Tropical Freeze. They ported Tropical Freeze to the Switch, but that was kind of fucking it. Like, it's going to be a decade between releases for Retro Studios, and that's rough. I don't know what's going on there, but it does also look like Nintendo's been spending money, because they actually apparently bought and opened a whole new office building for Retro Studios down in Austin, Texas. So it seems like Nintendo's been spending money on Retro. Like, they might just be in a sort of building up phase. Maybe they have just gone quiet. We know they're doing Metroid Prime 4. We clearly know something must have existed at some point and got canceled. There was Metroid Prime Remaster, which Retro did work on, but we also learned that Iron Galaxy did a lot of work on Metroid Prime Remaster as well. So they're sort of an anomaly where it's like we know where they are, we kind of know what they're doing, but it's been a long, long time since they've released a full game on their own, kind of without any help. So I wouldn't call them missing in action, but it kind of feels like maybe Nintendo's been quietly building them up for the next system, maybe even. So, but yeah, like looking at it across it as a whole, we pretty much are looking at, Nintendo's been doing what they're doing, but there's some big studios that have been really, really quiet. EPD9 is really strangely quiet since they haven't. I can't believe there was never an ARMS sequel. We never got Legs. I can't believe we never got Nintendogs or Cats or anything updated from EPD9 on that. Like, they clearly had the success and money to do so. But they kind of just started farming out Mario Kart to everyone else after they were done with 8 Deluxe. And it's bizarre. EPD8 is taking way too long or whatever the hell it is they're doing. And EPD7 is just fallen into a black hole. All that being said, it hasn't really. You can't really sit there and say like, well, it's not like any of these franchises died, because a lot of franchises moved to different places. Metroid, for example, is being made at Mercury Steam, being made at Retro. Donkey Kong is kind of in flux right now. We don't know what's going to happen to Donkey Kong Country. There was a rumor that EPD8 was going to make a Donkey Kong Country game, but we haven't really. That was just a rumor. So we don't know right now what is the future of Donkey Kong. We don't know. Will Tamagotchi Life or any sort of me-centric games come back? That, who knows? Maybe not. Rhythm Heaven seems dead for all intents and purposes. Nintendogs is dead. I don't know if anyone's going to cry about that. ARMS is strangely dead, or at least in hibernation for the time being. And that's to say nothing of other, what were formerly internally developed Nintendo projects like 1080, like Wave Race, like Excite Bike, if they want to. Well, Left Field's gone, so I guess can't really count them anymore. But that's gone. Star Fox is gone. F-Zero is gone. Like, there's a Kid Icarus is gone. Ice Climbers is gone. There's a plethora of Nintendo franchises, some big, some small, some just, kind of there, that really feels like, feels like one of these developers who've basically done nothing for over half a fucking decade, really feels like, really, you couldn't find someone to scrap together something, like EPD7 couldn't have found some way to do, like maybe just a small, download only update for like a new Ice Climbers or something like that. Like, why did Intelligent Systems take over the WarioWare series from EPD7? Like, what's going on there? Did EPD9, were they really incapable of maybe carrying on the torch for a new Kid Icarus or something? Like, or something like, hell, they are the Mario Kart devs. Why couldn't EPD9 make a new F-Zero? Why couldn't they contract out Sega to do an upscaled port of F-Zero GX for the Switch. Call it SX. I mean, be dope, right? I know Nintendo's basically said, like, you know, they don't need to make Mario or a new F-Zero because they have Mario Kart and it's doing so well. And the other big thing is like, oh, well, they'll do F-Zero when they have a new idea. Well, here's a crazy idea: online gameplay. You've never had online gameplay. How about an online BR? How about like a 30 or 40 person race in F-Zero, where every, like, you know, 40 people online go into this death race on F-Zero, like, you know, last man standing. There's an idea, but no, I just thought that up for free. You can take it. I don't even care, but yeah, just no, nothing, gone. I mean, Star Fox pretty much dead after Zero. Zero was Zero. It was, you know, fucking awful. So I guess, but like, yeah, it's shocking to me that, you know, there was the rumored Star Fox Grand Prix game by Retro, and, you know, even if it was all bullshit or whatever, I would not have minded Retro making a Star Fox game of any kind between now and Metroid Prime 4. That would have been nice. It certainly couldn't have hurt them. So yeah, it's just a weird thing that there's actually a ton of Nintendo franchises that just they fell into this black hole with these developers, and I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't think EPD9's in any danger of going anywhere. I'm probably of the opinion that EPD7 might have just consolidated with 4 and 5, and I wouldn't be surprised if EPD10, Pikmin, Mario Maker people, at some point, maybe they blob together and merge with someone as well. It's hard to really say, but yeah, like, I know I'm making this video kind of right before a time they traditionally have a Nintendo Direct, and maybe Nintendo Direct will be showing us, hey, here's the game from this dev that's been quiet for half a decade, but I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I'm actually really curious. What do you think the missing in action Nintendo devs could be doing? Let me know what you think what EPD 7, 8, and 9 are up to. Where have they been? What's Retro been cooking? Is it just Metroid Prime 4? Is there more going on there? And will we see any of these other kind of lost Nintendo franchises come back? So let me know what you guys think, and I will see you on the channel. Later, dudes.